G'day again, Albert and Mina. Talking about legalising drugs. So, is it something that's proposed in Australia or in different parts of Australia?
Starting.
Yeah, I wouldn't say by the government really, but
Medical marijuana now. Have you noticed that medical marijuana is fine?
I've heard that term a lot these days. Yeah.
But it's the foot in. It's the foot into a much more sensible view of drugs.
Much more sensible view of drugs. This means your opinion of it is that drugs should be legalised.
At the very least, decriminalised. At the very least, decriminalised. Decriminalised basically means when you treat it like a speeding fine. Yeah. So if I catch you with it, okay, you shouldn't have done that. Here's a fine.
$160, 3 points. See you later.
See you later. Okay, you have to go to a doctor. You have to go to a psychologist, something like that. Fully legalised and treat it like alcohol. So you make rules. Who can sell it? Who can make it? What's in it? You tax it. The problem is, I always laugh when people say, "Oh, that'd be terrible." Then everyone's already smoking marijuana. Yeah. Everyone's already using coke.
Is it only marijuana that they're talking about, or are we talking about...
For medical, the states are talking about.
But I'm saying
marijuana.
The legalisation stuff, the one that you're talking about.
I'd say everything.
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 Cocaine. Heroin. Ice.
See, I wouldn't go that far personally.
Well, I'll explain my theory on it.
I can appreciate that it makes it cleaner and that'll remove all the black elements from the black market.
Yeah, and that's I'm kind of on the fence.
I can understand why people would argue that. But
I've thought this quite thoroughly, and the argument was made to me, and it seemed very logical and rational. The problem with when we make a substance illegal is that the reality is that the government never has the mechanism to control what makes the substance. So as much as, for example, we try to control marijuana, we can never stop people from growing it. It's a very simple plant. In Australia, it grows very well. It loves our climate, and it grows very easily because we have a tropical climate. Something like cocaine does not like Australia at all, from north to south. But we have a neighbour across an ocean that grows it very well. The problem with us, for example, is that we're the largest island on the planet, like one country that's an island, and we literally do not have the resources to police every inch. Yeah. So we're in a situation where we have to accept that. Even if we were a population like the US of 300 million people, 350, they do not have the resources to police every inch of their borders. Yeah. They still can't stop cocaine and heroin and things that are manufactured outside coming in. So you have to sort of recognize that. Right? We already allow harmful substances to be consumed by a population. Cigarettes,
alcohol,
TV, pharmaceutical products,
TV, the internet,
dairy. If you want to go a little bit more.
I always find it funny that if I walked into a police station and said, "I'm going to watch pornography for the next 100 hours," the cop would just tell me to bugger off. Yeah. But if I said to him, "I'm going to snort one line of coke," he'll get upset. Because he's been trained to say, well, that's a bad substance, it's not good for you. Yeah. But when I tell him I'm going to do something legal but harmful, well, he says, well, you're an idiot, go do whatever you want. Yeah. So again, I go to the bottle shop and I buy 10 bottles of Jim Beam, and I tell the guy, I'm going to consume, I'm going to go home, I'm going to consume all of it right now. Yeah. Okay, you're an idiot, you probably give yourself alcohol poisoning, but it's up to you.
Let me put it back on you for a second, Albert. Say take alcohol, for example, because it's legal. Do you think it comes with a bad culture, and that if you legalise other things, that a bad culture can come with that as well?
It will, but the problem is there's already a bad culture for drugs. And it's not a bad culture, it's horrendous. Okay, it's a horrendous culture. So one of the aspects of drug culture is that because it's illegal, there's an aspect of a lack of responsibility. So we've done great work with alcohol in this country. People don't realise is that alcohol consumption's actually dropped in Australia. People think, over decades, it's actually dropped. So the amount of alcohol.
Are you talking about binging or sort of alcoholism, or are you talking about alcohol consumption?
Like leaders. If you talked about leaders,
okay.
Because everyone thinks we drink the most, but we actually don't, and we've dropped.
Okay.
Overall, is that from the media though? Sorry, from the recent media.
But media being the media, the whole job of the media is to sensationalise. If the media's did its job to tell people the truth, then we wouldn't be having this conversation now because we don't need it. No, we'd have the truth and we'd have the correct information. So with alcohol, we're consuming less as Australians. Our culture has changed. For example, the idea of, drink driving. At the time of my mate's fathers, was considered fine. You went to the
Absolutely,
pub, you
yeah.
got absolutely smashed, and you drove home.
It's not far away, mate.
It's not far away. I'll be
Yeah.
fine. Now it's don't be a bloody idiot,
Yeah.
and we accept that more and more.
Mm.
You know, and over time, our sort of drinking cultures change. We don't like people who get smashed and, you know, king hit people, one hit punches. So it's actually changing. So it shows that a society can take something
control.
that's bad, has a bad culture to it, and change it. The problem with drugs is it's hidden. So the nature of an illegal substance is you can't get someone to come out and say, I'm a coke user, these are the problems with coke, you know, how can I change it?
But then, okay, so if I put a conservative hat on
Yes.
right now, and I'll say to you, if you legalise things like cocaine, heroin, and now the scariest of them all as far as I'm
Ice.
concerned, ice, will that not expose my kids to it a lot more readily? I can appreciate what you're saying, and it's already there,
Yeah.
right? Like, but it is underground,
Yeah.
and as long as, like, it's still for if I was a conservative,
Yeah.
it's still I still have limited control, but
Yeah.
control nonetheless as to whether or not my son, daughter is exposed to it. What do you say to somebody who could who would argue that legalizing it would just bring it to the surface, which would just mean
Promoting.
I have no longer any control over it?
Okay, first thing is that the drug dealer does not care who he sells to. So he knows it's illegal already, so he's going to sell it to your 14-year-old,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not. The bottle shop owner, though, cares about his business. So he's not going to sell alcohol to your 14-year-old.
Hmm.
We don't have a problem of legal, licensed brothels offering their services to underage kids, or pubs offering their services to underage kids, or tobacconists offering their services to underage kids. We have a huge problem with coke dealers
What a
offering
bloody
their
good argument.
services.
How do I hear?
You know,
Yeah,
they don't care. Marijuana dealers don't care. When you legalise it, you put the responsibility back on people. Say, look, I want this business. I want to be able to sell it. The government have made the rules. They said you have to be this age, you have to be licensed, you have to be permitted. If you're on this list, you can't have it. Da 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 da. Okay. And then I'll sell it to whoever is allowed to have it.
Yeah.
The government says it can be this quantity. It can have only this percentage of this chemical. So I'll source it from a legal person.
Good. So you move away with the backyard ice labs.
Ice labs. And that. The best argument, if anyone wants to sort of, they're not convinced. Albert, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not convinced. There is a fascinating experiment that happened in society that can actually show to us what would happen if we turn drugs from illegal to legal. And that is prohibition of alcohol in the 1920s in America.
Yeah.
So what had happened was in the early 1900s, late 1800s, there was a big push in America to ban alcohol because it was considered just this horrible, the substance of the devil. Men were becoming monsters with it, and actually changed the constitution to ban some forms of alcohol. So it's basically things like pub alcohol, beers, and that. Certain more refined alcohol that the rich could consume were legal still, but the rum and the beer and all that stuff, it was illegal. Well, what happened? Fascinating thing happened. Drove it underground. What happened then was
Mafia.
organised crime came.
Yep.
In fact, the mafia could not have existed in the United States without that period, those 10 years of alcohol prohibition. Another phenomenon that came out of it, because now there was organised crime dealing in illegal substances with huge profits, was corruption. Corruption of politicians, corruption of governments, and corruption of the police. So corruption skyrocketed because, again, huge money, pay off the police, pay off politicians, pay off judges.
And banks as well. I mean, it came out that Wells Fargo finances the Mexican drug cartels.
Yep.
So, I mean, I can understand that. I can see, you bring it above ground, I suppose, and you take out all nasty elements from it.
Yeah. And then what happened when they legalised it? So I think 1930, 31, they legalised it. Well, what happened was the mafia got out of the game. Corruption of police went down. The dangerous alcohol consumption was removed. So people talk about ice. Albert, you want to legalise ice? Well, again, you go back to that experiment in the 1920s. People were drinking backyard alcohol. Like they were drinking ethanol. So they were drinking ether. So they were drinking stuff that was meant for cars, was meant for planes, because they couldn't get safe, legal alcohol.
And
People were dying. People were dying. Now, does anyone ever think I'll go into a pub, drink a beer, and I'll die on the spot? Never. But that's exactly what was happening back then. People were being massacred. The murder rate in the US in places like Chicago went through the roof. Why? Not because people were drunk and killing each other, it's because criminal gangs were shooting each other, killing each other, cops being killed, police killing crooks, stealing money.
Actually, that reminds me of Guildford and Maryland, so...
Yeah. You know, if you removed drugs from the black market into the legal market, you would destroy huge swaths of organised crime. The bikies would be cut at the knee.
You take a lot of pressure off the jail system, the prison system.
You huge pressure off the jail system. You'd allow police to actually police crimes that people care about, like pedophiles,
the court system,
like rapes, like murders, like robberies. In fact, most robberies occur because of junkies. Junkies who are addicted to substances that can't be controlled. There is no way, for example, for a junkie here, like a heroin addict who got a bad hit, to sue his dealer. But we know that I go to the pub and I drink alcohol, I know what its effects are. It has a label on it. It says how much percentage of alcohol is it. There are rules behind it. When I can use it. Can I use it here? I can't, you know, use my tow truck when I'm under the influence.
I mean, these arguments are so much more rational than, say, a liberal's point of view, where they just say, oh, we'll let anyone make their own decisions and that'll be that, as opposed to, well, look on the other hand what you can actually gain from it.
There's a recent example in Portugal where they've decriminalised.
So they haven't legalised?
Drugs, not legalised, decriminalised. So, you know, personal possession up to a limit. And the way they've dealt with it, what they've found is that their HIV counts have gone down. HIV, so things that they weren't even thinking about has gotten better. Hard drug addiction has gone down. Why? Because they found an offshoot to decriminalising, not legalising, but decriminalising drug use, was that people were more willing to say, I have a drug problem. And you actually think about it, you go, that makes sense. So if I had an alcohol problem, man, I've got an alcohol problem. Oh,
it'd be sympathetic.
It'd be sympathetic. But if I say I've got a coke problem, well, you're an idiot. That's illegal.
Yeah, come on, mate.
Come on, mate. You know, what are you doing? You know, oh, you're junkie, da-da-da. But if I said I have a cigarette problem, an alcohol problem, a pornography problem, I go to the brothels too much, I play too much video games, things that are within the legal
sphere.
Even gambling.
Even gambling, which
oh,
can terrorise the house.
Hey, George, you know, we'll help you. We'll help you. Don't worry, mate. Here, the government agency, oh, we'll help you. Yeah, good on you. You broke your gambling habit. But you say, oh, look, I use heroin a bit. Oh, my God. I want to stay away from it. So, in Portugal, they found kids will talk about it more, and it actually took the pleasure away. Kids didn't want to use drugs as much because they thought, oh, it's not important anymore. So we could do all these to illegal substances and save money here, make money there, and actually reduce the use and make whatever use is there safer.
It's a very interesting point.
It's a great argument.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Cheers.